So you ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
All right, cool. Well, I appreciate you making the time, Dana. And as fates would have it, meeting just for that one day when you were out here in Columbus,
Yep.
speaking at that event on the panel. Oh my gosh, I think I mentioned this when I first met you. Is you have that smile that just like you glow, and so your personality is just very contagious. And it sounds like obviously having 11 Keller Williams offices, being a serial entrepreneur, owner, operating principal with Keller Williams, and you do a lot of things, right? Uh, I would love to back up though. So let's dive into Dana, right? Did you always dream about being a real estate agent or being owner operating principal? Why real estate? How did this happen?
Yeah. So yes. Well, and I loved meeting you that day also. Thank you so much for having me. I love to be able to share and learn from other people. And before we even started recording, you already taught me a ton of stuff. So thank you.
Of course.
um, Value exchange. I love it. No. So the answer to your question is no. I did not think that this wasn't something that I always wanted to do. I actually really had no clue what I wanted to do. This year is my 18th year in real estate, which is crazy to think about. And I was in school at the University of Kentucky as a sophomore. I had been just had several different jobs. And actually, I was you'll get a kick out of this. Most people laugh at this. I spray tanned naked people when I was in college. That was basically what I did.
I have a friend who owns a spray tanning business in San
Really?
Diego. So okay, cool.
Yeah,
Nice.
like I was like the go-to person if you wanted to have a great spray tan. And I was doing that. I was also working at a property management office for
Mhm.
someone. And so I kind of was a little familiar with real estate.
You're starting to see
Yeah,
some of the inner workings. Okay,
yes,
cool.
I could definitely see it. And I was at UK as a sophomore, and one of my dad's friends said, "You should get your real estate license. You would be so great at real estate." And I was like, "Really?" I didn't even, I had just never thought about it before. And so I ended up going, and I just did like a quick 6 week in-person class while I was in school, while I was working two other jobs,
Did
and
you say what you were studying, by the way?
I was studying business management and communications. And I got my real estate license that year. I started working for a builder. So I was selling repping new construction homes. I was sitting open houses, 7 days a week, and really just focusing on that. And then I started having a lot of success. I was converting people, I was building great relationships. I had so many great relationships from my tanning bed days and spray tanning people. Once you spray tan somebody, you kind of have a
We're
intimate
besties.
relation. Yeah, you have an intimate relationship with them. So once people knew that I had got my license, it was like they kind of just started coming out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
Yeah, similar to you. Yeah. And so I actually dropped out of school. I never went back. I don't have a college degree. I didn't graduate. And for many years, Thomas, I was like very embarrassed to say that to people, or I felt like
Mm.
people were going to kind of, just be like, "Oh, really? You didn't graduate college?" And now I look back, and it's kind of like it was just part of my journey. I mean, it was what it was. I came out of the gate. I was sold 40 houses that year, and just had so much quick success, but that came from a lot of hard work. I'm definitely, never been afraid of work. And so for me, it was just part of my life that I think it was something that set me up for so much more. And yeah, so no, I never thought that I would be doing what I'm doing today. So but when I did get into real estate, I loved it. And I think the reason is because I love people and I love to build relationships. I think one of my superpowers is a connector. I like to connect people. I connect well with people. I'm intentional about it. Now I've spent thousands of hours and thousands of dollars learning how to be a great connector, but I think it came naturally to me also from the beginning. So yeah, I also think part two of that is when I started selling, I thought that I would sell forever. Um, I never really thought of leadership as an option, or I was just in the day-to-day grind of selling and loved it. Loved working with my clients and with investors, and I repped several new construction builders, and new construction was kind of like my niche, if you will. And then I got the opportunity to step into a leadership role inside of a Keller Williams office. And from there, kind of everything just took off and exploded. So I still have a team that sells, but I haven't sold for about 8 years now.
Dang. All
Yeah.
right. So you're currently in North Carolina. Are you
South
from
Carolina.
South Carolina. Are you from South Carolina?
No, I'm from Lexington, Kentucky, and we still have my house in Lexington. I still go back every
Okay.
week. But yeah, I got married a year and a half ago, but my now husband was in Charleston. So when we met, I kind of came here for him, and then also my whole family moved here, and now like half of my friends have second houses here.
How much of your family?
My brother is here. My parents were here. My dad passed away last year, but he was here, and my mom is still here. So yeah, we kind of
Now
migrated.
in South Carolina.
Yeah, now in Charleston.
You pulled off what a lot of people joke about, right? Including what
Yeah,
me and my family have talked about, which is like, oh man, like if we could get everyone out of California
yeah,
and all be in the same place. So do you have family back in Kentucky?
it's
Probably.
pretty great. Yeah, I still have like my cousins and aunt and uncle and stuff in Kentucky, and still go back. Like, so, I mean, all my best friends are there. My business partners are all there. Really, truly, the pandemic kind of made it possible because everybody was, we were remote. And so for 2 years, Zoom was, normal all of a sudden. So I was going for 3 years. I was 2 weeks in Kentucky, 2 weeks in Charleston, 2 weeks, like every 2 weeks, back and forth, back and forth. So it really kind of helped me with things. But yeah, I will say though, Charleston's kind of a place, once you come here and you hang out for a little bit, it's easy to get people to move here. So that worked
Okay,
out
cool.
nice.
Nice. So you said you have friends there too. Okay. All right, cool.
Yeah.
You mentioned something about you've spent a lot of time, like, how did you become a good connector? Right.
Yeah.
But I guess maybe you can answer this question right off the bat is who's someone in your life that taught you one of the most important things you've ever learned growing
Yeah.
up?
Yeah, definitely. I would say so. I have been very blessed, and actually, I'll be with him next week to be mentored by John Maxwell, and he's just one of the greatest leadership, I think, coaches, leadership mentors of all times. He's written more books on leadership than any other author ever has, and John's just such an amazing person. And I was introduced to John from one of my dear friends and mentors, Linda McKissick, who owns the Keller Williams Ohio Valley region. So she's been with KW for years, I think since like the late 80s. And Linda has been a mentor and close friend of mine. We also have a podcast together. That's my podcast co-host partner. But Linda introduced me to John maybe 7 years ago. And so since then have just had a great connection with John. And anytime I can get, it's like if you get the opportunity, once you've been with John and then you get the opportunity to do something else with John, we always joke and say like your wallet just magically opens and you're like I'll pay whatever to be in John's presence because he's just like that powerful of a leader and a mentor. And John really is the person that I started studying from the beginning on connecting with people, on being a great leader. You'll love this. He has a new book coming out. He has two books coming out this year, one in April and then one later, I think in the fall. But the later one is actually called Return on Failure. And it's all about people's experiences and how they've taken failure and they've let it shape their experience and shape their life for something better instead of something, not better. He always says that you can't separate success and failure because anytime you've had a lot of success, you've most definitely experienced failure along the way. And so I would say when it comes to connecting and being intentional, I've just followed John. I've modeled after what John has done. I've read every book he's ever written on it. I have a personal goal of being with him 4 times a year so that I can just soak it up. And my husband and I, we always travel and we'll go see John anywhere. But it's just one of the most important things I've learned from him is just being intentional and learning how to connect with people because number one, most people can smell BS from a mile away. And then number two, in today's world, people would rather follow a leader that's real than a leader that's right. That's Craig Groeschel is another leader that I love to follow who talks a lot about that. But it's about being authentic and genuine and, truly caring and thinking of ways you can be intentional with people instead of just coming in hot, trying to sell something and, not building that connection.
That's amazing. Yeah, and so true. So John Maxwell, do you meet with him like one-on-one? Is this small group coaching? Is this large group? Is this conferences? What is it?
It's all of the above, but typically it's usually like we'll go to some events that he has throughout the year. Next week, he just started something new, and Adam and I were like so grateful to be invited to it. But he's inviting 40 people to his house in West Palm Beach who are leaders in different avenues. Some are pastors, some are leaders, some are coaches. I mean, it's all over the place. But it's called a high capacity roundtable, and then typically twice a year I'll pay to go to a roundtable with him. Last year I did two. One was in Highlands, North Carolina, where he had Dr. Henry Cloud come and teach us for a day, who wrote the book Boundaries, Trust, Necessary Endings. He's great.
Love that book.
Yeah, so good. And then the second one we did was amazing. We went to Chattahoochee, Georgia, right outside of Atlanta, and we spent the day with Dan Cathy, Truett Cathy's son, who founded Chick-fil-A. So we had private, like everything of learning how Chick-fil-A operates, how their leadership style is. I mean, there's just, when you do stuff with John, like you meet people that you wouldn't get to meet if it wasn't for John. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it's the circles of people we surround ourselves by. Okay.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it is very much so.
About intentionalism, right? Which I feel like also, you seem like a process-driven person. Am I right, Dana?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. It's kind of what you have to do, right? Otherwise, I mean, life doesn't get easier, right? You just got to get better at life.
So true. Yes, that's right. It probably gets harder.
Talk to me about, what was that?
I said it probably gets harder, actually, as the more success you have and things. It just depends, right?
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter to me if you're the Pope, the president, a police officer, a homeless person, a real estate agent, a mortgage lender. You don't get to not be human.
Right.
And as human beings, we only experience adversity the same way.
Yeah.
It's the biggest problem you have.
Yeah. And all those people we all only have 24 hours in a day. Like I always say that when you look at somebody that's super uber successful, like they have the same amount of time every day that you have. So it's just what they choose to do with it versus what you might be choosing to do with it.
Yeah. One of the things you mentioned about, failure, right, is I've heard said, right, when something happens, you get to choose. Did this happen to me or did this happen for me?
Yeah.
And I get it. There's a lot of the times where you're all like, what? Like,
yeah.
Because depending on what it is, it could be really bad.
Yeah.
But you get to choose, right? That's one of the choices that we have is, okay, mindset. It's done. It happened.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So talk to me about some of the processes that you've found over the years, right? So if we can back up a little bit, right? Because what I want to pull out of you is the experiences, some of the things that you've learned the hard way, right? Whether that's mistakes you made, people you fired, right? Let's focus on that process, right? And the intentionalism behind that, because it sounds like you've had a lot of mentorship with it.
Yeah.
Are there things that come to mind that specifically around how you run your business, right? All your businesses, right? Because you have an interior fashion design company, right? You have your transaction marketing company, you have a coaching company.
Yeah.
You have your Keller Williams thing going.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that you've learned there?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. This could be a 5-hour long podcast on failures that I've had and lessons that I've learned. I have a quote that I've just always loved that I think kind of drives me, and it's see you at the top because the bottom is too crowded. And so for me, I think I have always I'm very intentional with goal setting. I'm very intentional with scribing. I believe there's a lot of power in scribing and writing down what you want and looking at it every day and manifesting on it and praying on it and meditating on it and all of those things. So I would say process number one is I have to have a vision, and I would encourage everybody else. You have to have a vision of where you're going. Last year, I read a super powerful book by Dr. Benjamin Hardy called Be Your Future Self Now. He also wrote with Dan Sullivan, 10X is Easier Than 2X, 2 books I would highly recommend any entrepreneur or business owner read. But the whole premise is you're processing, you're planning your processes and you're processing and planning today for 10 years from now, not for tomorrow. So I'm looking at where I want to be in 10 years, always constantly, like, what is my age in 10 years? What does my wealth need to look like in 10 years? What are my businesses? What is my time? What is my family? What are my health habits? All of those things in 10 years. And then you let your future self, this is what I do. I let my future self pull me towards that instead of really looking, backwards or thinking, okay, well, let's see what do we need to do next week? Now, with that being said, of course, we all have to-do lists. We all have schedules. Mine is like crazy. I have to keep my paper calendar with me at all times because that's just what we live and, breathe by.
What works
But
for you? Yeah, there's a lot of things you can do, but okay.
yeah, totally. Like I know I can control my time, and I tend to spiral when I don't have freedom of my time. Like that's just a kind of a, I don't know, personal thing for me. Like if I start to get anxious or I'm feeling, out of control, it's usually because I'm not in control of my time. And that does not work good for me. So processes and failures along the way, I would say one, in the beginning, I didn't have a vision. I was just out there grinding, hustling, and it worked for me for
Was this
about
as a builder rep or?
this was as a realtor. So, I was selling new construction homes and I was selling resale homes. Just everything. And even then moving into leadership, probably for the first 2 to 3 years, it's like you're just learning. And someone taught me this and it was so true. Anytime you're starting something new, you're like an accordion and you're stretched all the way out. And like little bit by little bit, as you learn and as you're in the experience and as you grow in your role, like you're coming back in to the middle, to the normal. And for so many years, I just felt like I was stretched all the way out. I just didn't know what I didn't know. But when I look back, it's because I never really set like a true vision, probably until about 8 or 9 years ago, to be honest, did I actually really start doing that. But man, Thomas, like the way that things have changed since then, because I'm so intentional with just where I'm going and what I'm going to do. And really the bottom is too crowded. There are very few 1%ers in this world. Very few. Look at athletes, how many thousands, want to be in the NFL or whatever, the NBA or whatever sport you like. And actually we just did a lesson with a Navy SEAL. We had a Navy SEAL on that we interviewed, and like thousands of people try out and want to be Navy SEALs, but like, what do they take 30 a year, I think it is, or something like that.
Yeah.
So there's just very few 1%ers. And I think the lessons along the way that I've learned is to be that 1%er, or even to be a 10%er. Like your life has to look so different than everybody else. You have to be willing to do the things that other people are not willing to do. And honestly, if I can speak kind of candidly right now, I'm struggling finding people that want to work now. It's interesting. It's interesting the way that, I don't know if it's post-pandemic. I don't know what it is, but you have to be willing to do the things that other people are not willing to do. And, for me, I think in the beginning, some failures that I had were just grinding every day and not really setting that vision and having control over my calendar, over my time, or knowing just what I was looking to accomplish. I was so focused on like getting the next commission check, or, getting through the month and getting my transactions closed out. It's like you stay in the weeds instead of having that 30,000-foot view. And the only way I was actually able to even get out of the weeds to the 30,000-foot view is through coaching and mentors. Like that's why I am so passionate about having a coach. If you are a business owner, an entrepreneur, whatever you're doing, if you don't have a coach, like to me, that's rule number one, because somebody has to keep you out of the weeds and hold you accountable. Because we'll let ourselves down every day, all day long. The reason accountability works is because by nature, we don't want to let somebody else down. And so if you have that person coaching you, mentoring you, multiple people holding you accountable, like that was a huge lesson in the beginning. I thought, oh my gosh, I don't like to be held accountable. I don't need anybody to tell me what to do. That's not what it is. Like now I'm like, man, where could I even be now if I would have started having a coach from day one versus waiting 8 years to get one.
Yeah, but we only learn in retrospect,
Yeah.
right? And I guess even if we were to go back and try and change something, could we be where we are today?
Yeah.
Right. So, I always like to say I wouldn't go back and change one thing about my past, even though there were so many things that I could have done better or mistakes I wish I didn't make. But I might not have my wife or any one of my 3 kids if, and again, that's just me being a little weird where it's like, no, I don't want to alternate the timeline.
Yeah.
Like, so
no, I believe that too. Like, I don't think there's even some of my greatest failures and mistakes, I would not change them for anything because they lined me up to be where I am today. And John Maxwell always says, like, you were born for this. Write down these 5 words. You were born for this. And I believe that, like, wherever you are, especially as a person of faith, like wherever you are, that's where you're supposed to be. Like, to me, that's my assignment for the time being, for the season. And so just figuring out, what I can do to serve other people and to be the best that I can during that season or assignment until something else changes, but not regretting anything. Because if you have
Yeah.
the mindset of you can learn from everything, which I think you and I both have.
Yes. Yeah, no, that I love the way that you put that as well, because actually one of my coaches, Jonathan Roach, I'm going to share something he says in a second. But he's also a spiritual guy, and I think that it's important that we're intentional about
Yeah.
our personal, spiritual, and professional life.
Yeah.
And it's okay if you believe in the universe or whatever it is that you
Yeah,
believe in,
totally.
that's fine. But a lot of the times people aren't integrated. And
Yeah.
I actually prefer that word now. One time I got called out for using the term work-life balance. Well, one of my other coaches, Renee Rodriguez, hates that term.
Why?
So,
Because there's never a
just
balance.
because it implies that you're taking away from something to give to something else.
Yeah.
Right. But why can't you just be integrated?
Yeah.
Why
Love
can't,
that.
like, if you want to be fit, then you're into fitness. That's
Yeah.
your life, right? If you want to be spiritual, then you go to church and you pray. It's like,
Yep.
and again, life doesn't get easier. Should you just have to do all these things? And I feel like sometimes we life hack it. But
Yep.
I want to come back. I'm going to ask you a question. There's so many good things there's so much to unpack, right? I love the accountability piece, because one of the things that Jonathan Roach talks about is, right? It doesn't matter if, you're an agent and you have these goals of you're going to get up and you're going to door knock, 100 doors today.
Yeah.
And something happens and you didn't hit your morning routine. And then it's like, oh, like I got to do this thing and I got to walk the dog and whatever. And it's like, yeah. And then you just push off door knocking till another day. Well, guess what? It doesn't matter if other people don't know,
Yeah.
And then, he gives this analogy, which is, it's a little weird analogy, but okay, we'll go with it. So imagine if every time you do that, there's a little nick on your arm, right? You just nick, it's just a little nick out of you. And then over time, that nick turns into a big hole. And you just put a shirt on because you're like, I don't want people to see this hole. It's there.
Wow.
Right. And now we're getting into the mindset and psychology, because Jonathan coaches a lot of, like, I'm pretty sure over the entire NFL playoff, he was coaching players on every team that was playing.
Wow.
He coaches CEOs, he coaches NBA players, PJ pros. He coaches a lot of people, and he keeps it confidential. He doesn't talk about who he coaches.
Yeah.
But like, that's so true, is like into the mindset of a lot of these high level athletes, people.
Yep.
If you're not hitting these things, right? If you're not having a successful day, something else I wanted to touch on is, like, I like the idea of, again, if we're pushing toward our future self, what is future us doing?
Yeah.
And do you have a list? Do you have a list of what's the definition of a successful day today?
Yeah.
And did you do those things?
Great
right?
question.
Yeah. I was going to talk about, like, you mentioned it. You said it in a different way, so maybe we got it from the same place. But I always say successful people do what other people think is unreasonable.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
It's not going to get any easier. It's going to get harder, actually.
Yeah. And
so I'm going to start saying that.
A great thing about that too is, a great quote around that too is, successful people do consistently what other people do occasionally. And I think that's huge too. Like, consistency is it. I mean, John Maxwell says consistency beats intensity every time. And for many years, I probably had success because of the intensity level that I had, because I'm just willing to go and grind and do it. And being consistent, wow, that has taught me so many lessons over the last several years. I'm still learning lessons around being consistent, because consistency beats intensity every single time. And so when you're wanting to show up different and be a 1%er, you're consistent. I mean, you are consistent in the things that you should be doing. And everybody's, I think, successful day is going to look different. I mean, a successful day for me is I get quiet time in the morning. I start my day, spiritually with the Lord first, because that's my thing. And then I think after that, I need to, like, walk or get outside, get some sort of sunshine or sunlight. I think my day is always better that way. And then no matter what comes throughout the day, for me, it's a successful day if I impacted, if I served, if I, brought value in some way, shape, or form to the people that I'm leading. And then also, of course, if I made an impact in my businesses, because you're not going to have a great day every day in your businesses. In fact, it's more like a roller coaster. You're gonna, some days are
Especially
great.
as a real estate agent, for all those who
Oh
may be
yeah.
hearing this, thinking about getting into real estate. There you go.
Yes, especially. I always joke and say real estate has got to be the only business that you can wake up in the morning and you're at the height of heights, and with one phone call, you're in the pits of hell in like 30 seconds. Like it's such a, you're just up and down all the time. So you got to have a lot of emotional
Perspective
intelligence.
and a good mindset. I love
Yeah,
that. Yeah. If you don't have a plan, then somebody else will make you part of theirs.
yeah,
And
totally.
you'll get pulled all around. So the question I wanted to ask you is, have you ever felt, right, over the past 18 years, and I'm sure we could go back farther, but let's just focus on the last 18 years. Have you ever felt like you got there? Like
Like,
it was working. It was your process, your mindset, things were exactly the way that they wanted to be.
I mean, I think I've had some great successes. I also am an
But I'm
achiever.
talking about your belief. Like, do you feel like you got there, right? Or what's your inner dialogue? What's that look like?
I mean, no, I guess the answer is no, because I feel like I still am becoming every day. I still like I feel like I still can do so much more. I love John Maxwell says his dad at 92, his dad passed away at 95. At 92, he said, John, I really feel like my best days are still ahead of me. And I'm like, man, what a lesson in that. And I think there's really not a finish line. So I don't feel like, man, yeah, I got there. Do I celebrate some of the successes? Yeah, like yesterday I sent a great email to all 360 70, however many we have, 76 agents in our Keller Williams consultants office there in Columbus, because out of 850 Keller Williams offices, we for January we're number 21 in the entire all of the Keller Williams ecosystem. We made it in the top 25. We're number 21 for profit and profit share, and that's a huge success. And so, I took that office over 6 years ago. And I think for the first 3 years, every time I went to Columbus and then went back home, I was like just pissed and crying and,
Just
like,
sapping
why?
energy from you, and like,
Yeah, I'm like, why did I do this? And, these people don't like Kentucky and they wear all this red and like they don't like my accent and just, you know, all these
what's all
things.
this red? What's with
What
these
is
people?
up with all the red and all the Buckeyes? Like, what is going on around here? And then, yesterday I had like an aha moment when I was sending that email to everybody, because I was like, man, like we've done it. I mean, what are we still can be way better, and we have a lot more goals to hit. Yet it's the intentionality that we've put behind that so many people don't even see. Like the momentum is there. Like, like now we've got the momentum and we're rolling with it. So I think you have different times. I have had different times where I'm like, man, like we've done it. Like we've nailed it. We're here. But I think momentum is a funny thing, because you can have it and you can lose it. And then you got to try to get it back. And then you can have it for a few years and then you can lose it again. So I just don't think that there's ever a finish line where I'm like, man, I did it. But I think that there are certain measures of success that I'm excited about. But for me, like I'm an achiever naturally. So, I mean, I'm always trying to get better. We're always trying to grow. We're always trying to do more.
I love that. Yeah. You read The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek?
Oh yeah. Years ago.
There
I
you go.
love that.
I can't help. It's one of the founding principles of Neo, right? Of our
Yeah.
company, is that a lot of people are trying
Cool.
to win business,
Yeah.
right? They're trying to like, oh, we're number one in the country.
Yeah.
It's like, great. Like, until when, right?
Yeah.
Until, is it going to be Loan Depot? Is it going to be Mortgage? Is it going to be like,
Yeah.
and why, right?
Yeah.
Like, what does that even mean? They're playing this finite, they're treating an infinite game like a finite game. It's
Yep.
something you can win. Well,
Yep.
nobody ever wins business, right?
Yep. So true.
Nobody ever wins life. It's
Yep.
something that's constantly, that's why I wanted to ask the question, is I think that, and I've seen this, there's a lot of people who maybe make excuses, is just a very blunt way of saying it, right?
Yeah.
Where they're, what you're saying, what you mentioned earlier, it's almost like the iceberg, right? They look at people and they're like, oh, I could never be Dana.
Yeah.
Like Dana's just like, the people look at you and they maybe even treat you like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, there's just she's there, she
Yeah.
got there. But they're, most of the time, and this is my experience, is I've never really felt throughout my life like, oh my gosh, I was there, right?
Yeah.
I got there. But in retrospect, you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, like, wow,
Mhm.
we've come so far. But I also love that is we're not like, where's this finish line?
Yeah.
It's never going to stop.
Yeah. Okay. You made me just think of two things on that. One is people always, I've always been taught and coached this. People always want to say, I want what you have. But when you ask them, are you willing to do what I did? Because you have to like do the did to get to the do where you are now. And most people aren't. I mean, they're not willing to do. Like I think sometimes I look at these agents and I think sometimes I want more for them than they want for themselves, which is every
Mm.
leader's dilemma. It's like you lead people and you can see their potential and you want so much more for them than they want for themselves. But I think like, man, I remember it's like now that they'll put on their goals, like, I want to host 2 open houses a month. And I remember like I was hosting 7 open houses a week every single day, trucking it to the grocery to blow up balloons, putting them out when it was windy and snowy, and putting out 10 directional signs. I mean, there's just,
Yeah, do you
which
want
I
to did
think,
what I did what
yeah,
I did?
I do think the market, I do think we're getting back to like doing the things that we used to do, because now we've moved we were in a skill-based market, we went to a speed-based market, now we're back to a skill-based market. But I do look at that and I think, man, I just don't know that some of these people are willing to do the things that people do to get to where they are. And then the other thing, you said something that made me think of this too, Thomas. My kind of business quote for the year this year um, goes with what you just said about like everybody just wanting to win and to be number one. And it's this: true competitors are not trying to beat someone else. They're trying to be the best that they can be. And the byproduct is they beat others. And really, to me, like that's what it's about. Like I'm a competitive person and I want us to be number one, but I don't want us to be number one because we like scratched and clawed our way there and we did things we shouldn't do, or anything like that. I want us to be number one because we were the best that we can be, and every day we strive to be the best and to give value. And the byproduct of that was we beat everybody else.
Do you want to do what I did?
Yeah.
You mentioned it being really hard to find people that are willing to work hard. And yeah, I remember so there's an agent here in the Columbus market. I imagine you probably know, but she was asking, there's this clubhouse call that we do every single week, and she's kind of a little flabbergasted. She's like, what is up with agents? Like, why are they just not willing to work? Like, and so it really, my answer to that is I think that yes, I guess you could blame the pandemic, but I think that this is definitely true in our culture as well, is
Mhm.
there's this addiction to instant gratification.
So
And
true.
it's so easy today to feel successful
Yep.
and you didn't actually accomplish a damn thing.
Yep. I totally agree with that.
So when a lot of the times I think people aren't talking about it, right? That we don't want to talk about the fact that you may have actually slept in, went shopping, then watched some Netflix, then did some work,
Yeah.
then like, oh, okay, like I gotta go pick up my kids now. And then when you actually have real conversations with people, what they say is there's just either not enough time,
Yep.
right? And now they start to justify and make excuses rather than own their shit. It's
Yep.
like you just chose to do other things that made you feel good. And we all know, whoever listening, you know what that thing is. You know
That's
what the
so
things
true.
are that we're kind of as a culture now addicted to. And sure, the pandemic maybe really, really pushed that hard for
Mhm.
people because it was so much easier to do it now. It was so much easier to make if you're not willing to make a personal sacrifice,
Yep.
right? Then yeah, I think there's a lot of people now that I wanted to share this as well. Something else Jonathan Roach talks about is maybe you should coach with him. He coaches a
And
lot of
he
great
has
people.
the same last name
Sounds
as
like
my husband. So I'm like, who? Roach, are we related? Or like, I need to check him out.
maybe, yeah, he's on the East Coast. Treating people as if they're world class, and this
Love
is
that.
something that you really have to embody. And now it becomes a be the change you want to see
Yeah.
exercise, right? Is we see these things in people and we want so much for them. We want them to be world class because we see it,
Yeah.
and I want it for you. But it's also really hard to now toe that line of treat them like the world class version of themselves,
I
right?
love
Like,
that.
and what I've seen is I've seen Jonathan do this, right? It's easy to say this and to preach it, but I remember there was a mortgage conference we went to. Maybe this was a year or two ago, and Jonathan's just hanging out. He always hangs out, like in the back. He watches the entire conference. He's not making excuses. Like
Yeah.
he does it, right? A lot of the time, speakers are like there and gone, and he goes over to the AV guys in the back and he starts talking to them about their job and whatnot. And he's like, hey, can I get you guys anything? Can I get you, like, do you guys want like food or water or anything like that? And whenever he was talking with someone, it's like, you're the most important person in the world.
Yep.
He's giving you the full so that's again, I think it's an art, it's a skill, it's something that comes with time as well, right? From
It's a lot of
experience.
intentionality. I mean, that's he sounds
Yeah.
like a very intentional person, authentic, intentional person.
Yeah, and I think that there's also, I've seen people who get a little weirded out by that. They're like, "Oh, is this real? Like, you're just kind of
Yeah,
forcing it." And it's like, well, no. Like, if you believe this is the right thing to do, well, now you have to be intentional and apply yourself, because it's
that's
also not easy to do that all the time. Now, sure, I'm sure with repetition, consistency over time, but yeah, like if there are realtors, right, that you guys have in your office, if there are transaction coordinators, right, like in the mortgage world, if there's underwriters, if there's whatever it is, like clients even, like, can you treat the client like the world-class version of themselves? And that's what's really going to, again, be the change you want to see. That's what helps people ultimately grow,
yep.
because a little belief goes a long way. Because
Yeah.
it's just so hard when we're the only person believing. Yes, you have to surround yourself with the right people, be accountable to that, have good people in your corner. I love that.
Yeah.
Um, okay. Thoughts or questions? I want to be mindful of time. What are some of the things that in this conversation you feel like have really come to the top that you want to make sure we spend some more time on?
Oh man, great question. I feel like we've covered so much. People are probably like, "Whoo, this is a lot." um, I think the last thing I would probably say, and you just said it, one of the greatest lessons in the experience that I have had is truly who you surround yourself with. And I think when you're, younger, and or I don't know, I feel like for years I heard your ring of five, your circle of five, and I'm like, whatever. Truly now today, like I just turned 40 last year, and when I look back on the last 10 years, the people that I have chosen to surround myself with are 100% a contributing factor to the success that I've had. And it's just been a game changer. Like even in my marriage, who Adam and I choose to be around other couples is a game changer. Business mentors is a game changer. I recently switched to a functional medicine doctor, and like just for longevity, because I would rather, do things right now than have to
Let's
fix
pay
it.
the fees now than pay them
Yeah.
later.
Yeah, totally, totally. And so even like if you look at that wheel of life, every like financially, the wealth advisors that help us now, like they're in every aspect, every spoke of the wheel of life, the who's are like so important. I mean, so important. And I just think sometimes when you're in the grind of everything, and you're focused on your business and you're focused on the next day, you don't realize that as much. But for me, like that has just been one of the of all the experiences, probably who you're around. Linda McKissick taught me one thing. It's called the 3 M's. She says, your 3 M's are your most important relationships that you'll have in your life. The first one is your master, meaning like who you spiritually answer to, whatever that is for you. The second one is your mate, because that's a very obviously important decision. And the third one is your mission, which is like that future why. So
Love that.
if you can nail, like if you've got your mate and you choose, if you nail your master, you spiritually you're in the right place, you nail a great mate, which I messed up the first time, but did great on the second time. And then your mission, like that is, and so much of that is the people that you're surrounded with all the time. And I see a lot of these people that aren't achieving the success, that they want. And then I'm like, but look at who you're around all the time. And are you intentionally choosing to get into rooms with people? And, Adam and I just were working on our numbers from last year, and we shared this at a conference we just spoke at. But I mean, we spent over 6 figures last year on personal growth and development and coaching, between the coaches that coach us and the rooms that we got in that we wanted to be into to learn more. Now we haven't always done that, of course, up until the last couple of years, but it's not an expense to us, it's an investment, because we know how important it is to choose the people that you are around and to have those relationships. So I would say, to me, like looking back on experiences, since that's kind of been our focus, I wish I would have started that. I wish I would have paid more attention to that way earlier in my business and in my personal life than I did
Yeah.
just over the last several years.
Yeah. And that's beautiful. I think that it's the rooms that because as our life changes and evolves, right, there's stages of life. So I think
Yep.
that sometimes, again, in retrospect, we're all like, oh man,
Yeah.
But there's always, I actually remember it was the first time I went out of my way to seek a mentor.
Wow.
I was at, it was a conference in California called the Conference on Business and Ethics. And one of the people talking was the, I guess you could say owner, right? He's the CEO for Farmers and Merchants Bank, which is the largest independent bank in California. And so this guy's a big deal, right? And I was inspired from the audience. Like, just, I went up to him afterward, right? And a lot of people don't do this for one reason or another. And I was probably 23. And I was like, Dan, like, I was super inspired by what you said. One day I want to be on the stage, like, with the same mission that you have. Would you be willing to meet with me
So
a couple of times, whenever, for as much, like, as little as time as you have, like, anywhere? And we ended up having like 4, 5, 6 meetings in his office in
wow.
Long Beach, California,
Wow.
because I asked.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't ask. And by the way, that was also free, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of these people that, I don't know, a lot of the times people just don't. They're
Yep.
just held back by fear. I understand that it's uncomfortable, but around this whole topic as well, we've got to make personal sacrifices in the short term for whatever you want in the long term. And as Jonathan Roach likes to say, I don't have it memorized yet, like a lot of his he does, or other people. So I have it on my desktop background and on my phone background. Is you have to be willing to pay the fees.
Yeah. Yep.
And the fees are time, energy, focus, and follow through.
Yep. Love that.
Those are the fees. So
Yep.
you have to be willing to pay the fees. If you know, there's so many, I made a little desktop thing that has all these inspirational things that over the years I've kind of, I want to always keep in front of me now.
That's so
But
cool.
yeah. I love that, you know, that you guys are so intentional, because especially, I'm going to use the word at the level, right? Because sure, I would say that you guys, by all stretch of like what people look at you as, you guys have achieved higher levels. At that level, it becomes even more important, probably, who, right, you're in the room with. And now, sure, money is a luxury that buys us things. And we've got to now spend that. Like I just said, when I was young, right? And Jonathan Roach, right? Renee Rodriguez, like, I've paid a lot of money now for coaching as well. And it's like, sure, at a certain point, it starts to make sense. But I don't think it's an excuse to not find some kind of mentor, because that it's there for you. You just got to ask.
Yeah, and mentors can be podcasts, they can be books, they can be
I call them mental mentors.
Yeah, I mean, John Messel was a mentor to me for years before I ever met him in person, because I read all of his books and I listened to his, audio. Well, then he had like audio tapes and stuff, but then podcasts. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Love it.
Nice. Mental mentors, get that if you don't have that either. But all right, Dana, thank you so much. I'm so grateful. This was definitely one of my favorite episodes.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
When you have a page and you just started going into the next page, then I'm very grateful and super excited. So
awesome.
Stay here for just a second, because this needs to finish uploading. Yep. But for anybody watching, appreciate you staying this long. Share it with somebody who's going to benefit from this. Comment, like, and we appreciate you guys. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.